extrapolation against civilization, where they talk about how the modern man is a systematic thinker, and that's supposed to be a negative thing, and how the primitive mind, as they put it, is a kind of intuitive thinker, a spiritual thinker that always has spiritual values in mind, is always humanistic and moral. And in a way, I mean, I'm really fascinated by that kind of romantic viewpoint. I think it's really interesting to go back to small-scale societies and look at the values and social roles and function of society as a model for bettering our society. But I do think that this idea of building functioning systems is fascinating, and in terms of modern or contemporary ideas, what's interesting about it to me is that Americans so deeply value individuality and personal freedom, and yet there's been this like plot of utopianism in America, that, I mean, essentially the American experiment back in like the late 1700s, early 1800s, when it was put together, was a utopian experiment at its roots, when, during the Revolutionary period, and that kind of, so maybe it's not such a subplot, but it's certainly one that's buried now, or at least marginalized in terms of like communes and utopian communities, and even, just how socialism is, a cuss word in American politics. This idea of building functioning systems runs counter to that kind of main American idea of individualism. But it fascinates me, and I think what I'm trying to do, at least with Experiment, is devise a functional system that takes humanistic values as its core. So basically, in a kind of ergonomic way, it looks at how people function, really, and tries to devise a system that makes it so people can be the best they can be, taking for granted the frailties of human nature, our selfishness, our drives, our appetites, our illogical failures, and our depression, our inability to pay attention, instead of trying to drive these things away, like pretend that we can make people completely selfless, take the selfishness as part of the foundation of a system that somehow, through its algorithmic structure, through its functioning, subverts our own selfishness, for example. And in a way, it's not a very socialistic experiment. I mean, it's really capitalistic in a way, and it's really pays attention to individuality. But it's systematic, and I'm interested in, for example, how could you devise a system of darshan that would be, a kind of theogenic system, assuming that people have a propensity to be theistic in their beliefs. How could you create? I mean, that's very mystical, right? But it's also it's also very hard. Like there could be something hard about it in terms of like hard science. That's very mystical. But then, I mean, I'm just thinking about. I've often thought about devising like a system of creating educational video content that could work along the same lines, because I look at something like YouTube or Facebook, and they're essentially empty. They essentially discourage creativity, and like the system of popular music, the like crap gets through and the interesting stuff is filtered out. How can you make a system that still plays to people's human weaknesses, that filters out the crap and lets the good through? And I think it can be done because that's the devotion to system. That's the belief in system. Anyway, 16 minutes of talking. I think that should be enough for my first video log. And I have a lot of dishes to do before I leave the house to go teach my course tonight. It's already 3:30 and I'm supposed to leave then. I don't know, my thoughts are constantly going, and this is a direct way of recording. It's so much different than writing. Making a video, especially this like really direct thing, like this iMovie on your computer, it's always there with you. And I'm sure that there'll be a lot of crap that I make, and especially organization is not my strong point. And I was reading some old poems that I published on Individual Frog, and poems are fascinating in that they're dealing with a lot of these ideas about groupthinks, superorganism, mass mind, people as a filter, people as a system, how social thought can be embedded through systematics, but the spiritual side of it, and very mystical. And in a way, all of this content, like I keep on saying in the poems, like I'm producing so much shit, and it needs to be filtered through. And who's going to do the filtering? I'm not very good at filtering. I'm like a fountain of puke or something. And I really think that there are some ideas that I'm having that are worth preserving, but I don't know how to edit out the good ideas from the bad ideas, especially because ideas are alive in the ecology of language in which they're presented, and when they're edited out as snippets, they cease to be alive. I'm trying to figure that out with this video log. Darshan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I've been dreaming today in the shower about creating a system of darshan, an idol with poetry, group weighted poetry, interactive online, the followers, the devotees, and actually creating a sculpture, an interactive, changeable sculpture with a prayer that is constantly improved upon. Some of the ideas that I've been revisiting, the Individual Frog and Philip K. Dick, and just futurology, neo-primitivism, neo-anarchy, whatever. It's because I don't want to do the dishes. Anyway, I'm a very busy dude, so I better stop. I hope it records. Okay, stop.